S.T.E.P stands for Safety, Training, and Emergency Preparedness. Today we'll discuss what this means and explain your responsibilities in meeting current safety, health, and environmental laws, rules, and procedures. The objective of the S.T.E.P program is to provide all the information you need to help you do your job as safely as possible. We consider injury and illness prevention a major concern. Accidents which result in personal injury or damage to property and equipment are a needless waste. It is management's policy to maintain strict standards of safety and to be prepared to cope with emergency situations. You may use certain materials that require specific precautions to protect our employees' health. It is our policy to identify and communicate to employees any potential job hazards, including those associated with handling certain chemicals. This policy includes communicating risks of exposure to any materials which may cause cancer or reproductive problems under certain conditions. There's a tendency to sometimes regard safety as someone else's job. However, ongoing concerns for individual safety and health, injury prevention, and the protection of the environment have made safety an integral part of every employee's job. It is management's responsibility to ensure job safety and that chemical information is obtained and explained to our employees. It is each employee's responsibility to follow company safety standards. Safety training and emergency preparedness, S.T.E.P, is not a new responsibility for employees. All employees are expected to function in a safe and healthful manner. Our safety is an important part of our daily activities. This program of employee training is a part of our continuing commitment to employee safety. Some principles of the S.T.E.P program may be new to you, so as a review we'll list the programs. Train you in CPR, first aid, and HAZWOPER. Review regulatory changes, the company's control measures, and standard operating procedures. Summarize complex safety, health, and environmental rules and regulations. Explain the company's policy of total compliance with the spirit and letter of these rules and regulations, and train you to comply with both government and company safety, health, and environmental rules and policies. Many employees have requested information about how oil was formed, where it comes from, and how it gets from the wellhead to the refinery. There have also been a lot of questions about who must be trained, what level of training is required, and what safety measures, including training, are required. The energy our cars use is millions of years old. The gasoline we so routinely encounter comes from petroleum, which was formed many millions of years ago. Petroleum, which describes both natural gas and oil occurring together, was formed from plants and tiny living sea creatures, microorganisms, that died. This once living matter died and settled into the muddy bottom of the ancient earth seas. Over many millions of years, layer upon layer of decaying microorganisms and plant life formed beds of sediment. The layers grew deeper, creating tremendous pressure. The combination of pressure and decay generated great heat. These natural forces produced chemical changes, transforming the decayed matter and silt into compounds of carbon and hydrogen. Oil, and a heavy black form of oil called pitch, bubbled from the ground, was used by Noah to seal his ark and make it watertight. Ancient Mediterranean sailors caulked their vessels with pitch. Egyptians before the time of Christ used pitch to grease the chariot wheels, while the Chinese drilled for oil using bronze bits and bamboo tubing. Thousands of years ago, residents along the Caspian Sea used oil seeping from cracks and rocks as fuel for cooking and heating. And Native Americans prized crude oil for its medicinal properties, sharing this knowledge with the early settlers. A new era dawned when Colonel Edwin L. Drake of New Haven successfully drilled for oil in Titusville, Pennsylvania in August 1859. This discovery began an oil boom that continues into today. In 1870, there were over 2,000 oil wells. By the turn of the century, there were almost 120,000 oil wells in America. Today, There are about 1 million oil wells in production in this country. From the field, crude oil goes to a refinery, where about 3/4 of all petroleum is refined into energy fuels used to power the transportation we use. Some crude oil is made into lubricants and greases, while about 5% of all petroleum refined in the United States goes into petrochemicals. Petrochemicals are manufactured into literally thousands of products, ranging from synthetic fibers to vitamins and food flavoring. Petrochemicals contribute some of the 70,000 chemicals used by industry. Between 500 and 1,000 new chemicals are introduced each year. These simple statistics provide the basis for increased awareness, training, and responsibility when working with any type of chemical. As the environment becomes more fragile and our responsibilities in protecting the environment and people increase, training becomes absolutely critical in meeting these responsibilities. No matter how technologically advanced we become with improved machines and equipment and processes, there's always the threat of an emergency. In emergencies, the training of those persons working with and around hazardous materials must be of the highest caliber and intensity. The more you know, the better you'll be able to prevent or, when necessary, to react to emergencies. Training is the basis for successful prevention of an emergency or responding to it in a way that minimizes danger to people, the environment, and property. The word HAZWOPER means Hazardous Waste Operations and Emergency Response. Today we'll discuss what this means and explain your responsibilities in complying with this law. Now you may say, I'm not involved with hazardous waste. I only work with petroleum products or toluene. Different government agencies like OSHA and the EPA regard these materials as hazardous waste if they are spilled, so everyone's involved. A substance is designated as hazardous if exposure results or may result in adverse effects on the health and safety of employees. This includes any substance defined under Section 101(14) of the Comprehensive Environmental Response Compensation and Liability Act, CER-CLA. Any biological agents or other disease-causing agents as defined in Section 104(33) of CER-CLA. Any substance listed by the U.S. Department of Transportation as hazardous materials under 49 CFR 172.101 and appendices, and a hazardous waste or combination of waste, 40 CFR 261.3, or those substances defined in 49 CFR 171.8. Keep in mind, this law addresses people's involvement in an emergency response, but does not require you to respond to an emergency situation in any specified fashion. In other words, the plan elements are guidelines, but the persons actually working with the materials are most knowledgeable of the actual situation and should plan for emergencies accordingly.